What if, in the summer of, Hitler had decided not to attack the Soviet Union, but to invade Syria and Lebanon through the eastern Mediterranean? Could he have thus avoided defeat that winter? Could he have gained a strategic advantage that would eventually ensure his total victory? After conquering Greece, all he had to do was reach out for oil. Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia were the largest suppliers of oil to the world market. The way to their wells and refineries was through the eastern Mediterranean and Syria. The decision not to reckon with Turkey's neutrality might have opened another route by land. The Levant was very poorly defended, with an army in Syria of men without modern equipment or air cover. Britain had only divisions in Egypt, Palestine, and Libya, and they were constrained by Rommel's African Corps. The strengthening of the German-Italian grouping opened the possibility of gaining control of the region. The possibility of pro-German regimes coming to power in the countries of the region should not be discounted. It was assumed that this plan would be put into action after the Barbarossa Plan was launched. But what if Hitler had changed his mind and chosen the invasion of the Middle East from Bulgaria and Greece instead of attacking the Soviet Union as the main strategic operation in? There are two possibilities here. The first one allowed not to violate the neutrality of Turkey and to limit itself to the territories already controlled by the Axis powers as staging posts on the way to French Syria. After landing in Cyprus and establishing permanent sea contact with the island under the cover of German aviation, a strike force sufficient for landing in Syria and Lebanon could be formed here. Having gained a reliable foothold in the French Levant, the mobile columns could launch an offensive across the desert into northern Iraq, and from there, with reinforcements, begin the conquest of southern Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. The captured oil riches would allow Hitler to solve all the problems of maintaining his war machine. By the end of, using only divisions, he could get to the southern borders of the Soviet Union. German troops were able to create a direct threat to Stalin's oil production centers on the Caspian Sea. The Barbarossa Plan could have been launched in a much more favorable military situation. The success of this scenario depended only on whether the number of ships needed to transport enough troops could be assembled in the eastern Mediterranean. Virtually all seagoing transports were in British hands, forcing the Germans during the attack on Crete to transport ground troops in totally unsuitable ships. Therefore, there is a possibility that such an operation could have failed. The strategy based on the violation of Turkish neutrality seems much more promising. During World War I, Turkey strictly adhered to its declared neutrality. Although Germany, Britain, and the Soviet Union exerted serious pressure on it, it did not make concessions. For all that, Turkey did not have any modern weapons and military equipment. Had Hitler, after conquering the Balkans, decided to postpone the implementation of the Barbarossa Plan, he could have easily invaded the European part of Turkey and conquered Istanbul, crossed the Bosporus, and seized the heart of Turkey, Anatolia, without encountering much resistance. Stalin's troops on the new Soviet western frontier were in no position to prevent such an initiative. A swift advance to the Caucasus Range, along which the border between the Soviet Union and Turkey ran, would have secured the Wehrmacht's flank from the Soviet Union. From Anatolia, German troops could easily invade Iran or Iraq and run their tentacles far south, deploy forward units around the Caspian Sea, and threaten Soviet Central Asia. Had Hitler supplemented his victories in the Balkans in the spring with victories in Anatolia and the Levant, German forces could have entered the Arabian Peninsula and dominated the southern flank of the Soviet Union. It is hard to imagine how a variant of the Barbarossa Plan that involved taking the USSR in pincers instead of a frontal assault could not have succeeded. At the same time, it would have jeopardized Britain's strongholds in the Middle East and posed a terrible threat to its dominance in India. Fortunately, Hitler designed his strategic plans with ideological factors in mind. In the ideological aspect, fear and hatred toward Bolshevism blinded him, making it impossible to see any other possibility of crushing the Soviet Union than a direct frontal attack.